The Holy Gospel according to Matthew, the 13th chapter.
Glory to you, O Lord.
Jesus put before them another parable. The kingdom of heaven may be compared to someone who sowed good seed in his field. But while everybody was asleep, an enemy came and sowed weeds among the wheat and then went away. So when the plants came up and bore grain, then the weeds appeared as well. And the slaves of the householder came and said to him, "Master, did you not sow good seed in your field? Where then did these weeds come from?" He answered, "An enemy has done this." The slave said to him, "Then do you want us to go and gather them?" He replied, "No, for in gathering the weeds you would uproot the wheat along with them. Let both of them grow together until the harvest, and at harvest time I will tell the reapers, 'Collect the weeds first and bind them in bundles to be burned, but gather the wheat into my barn.'" Then he left the crowds and went into the house. And his disciples approached him, saying, "Explain to us the parable of the weeds of the field." He answered, "The one who sows the good seed is the Son of Man. The field is the world, and the good seed are the children of the kingdom. The weeds are the children of the evil one, and the enemy who sowed them is the devil. The harvest is the end of the age, and the reapers are angels. Just as the weeds are collected and burned up with fire, so will it be at the end of the age. The Son of Man will send his angels, and they will collect out of his kingdom all causes of sin and all evildoers. And they will throw them into the furnace of fire, where there will be weeping and gnashing of teeth. Then the righteous will shine like the sun in the kingdom of their Father. Let anyone with ears listen. The gospel of the Lord.
Praise to you, O Christ.
You may be seated. I have a confession to make. Some would argue it's not much of a confession because, quite frankly, most of you already know this. But I'm still going to stand up here and say it out loud. I'm not a very good gardener. Yeah, you already know, don't you? That's it. Some of the problem is that, well, there are so many other things that I would rather be doing. Another problem is that I often inherit gardens, especially flower gardens. When Dawn and I bought our first house, we bought it from close friends. In fact, they were baptismal sponsors for our son. And it was a quaint starter home. They had done really incredible work with that house, and they had worked hard with the garden. They had been very deliberate and very selective about identifying what flowers to put in and what berry bushes and where to put all these things so that they would produce, so that they would be the most fabulous garden possible. And it was fabulous. And they were proud of it. And as we had bought the home and they walked us through that backyard and they showed us all of these flowers that were in this place and that place and all that they had done, it was a little overwhelming. All the decisions that they had made to get it just so. Then spring came. You see, when one inherits a garden like that and spring comes, one does not always know which of the plants that are springing forth from the soil are those carefully selected and identified flowers and berries and plants, and which are weeds. I didn't have a clue. I had no idea how to sort all of that out, could not figure out what was good plant and what was weed. They all looked the same to me. Of course, there are ways to deal with this. One option is to assume that everything is a weed. Just kill it all. Wipe it all out. Just undo everything. Anyone who may have gone to see Wonder Woman knows that that's basically what Ares, the god of war, was claiming was true among humanity, that everybody's bad and not worth redeeming. And so Ares had gone out and among people and whispered in their ears in such a way as to plant ideas, and then he just watched them follow those planted ideas. His assumption was that if you plant those ideas, humanity would destroy itself. In fact, in the implosion, his assumption was that humanity would take the world with it. There is another option, and that is to assume that everything is good. They're all good plants, are they not? Now, let's not just rush to the conclusion that how bad that could be, but you know, one thing we can be fairly assured of is that it would be lush, even if some of the plants are pretty noxious. Perhaps that is the form of, in that movie, Diana's naivete, where she assumed the best of everyone and found herself confronted by the challenges that not everyone was necessarily acting for the good. In the end, when it comes to humanity, the argument can be pretty persuasive. There are ways in which humanity blows it over and over again. There are ways in which, in so many words, the failings can lead us to think that there is no good. Perhaps there's another way. Jesus has begun to tell a series of parables, and before we get into any one of the parables, it's important for us to remember that each parable functions as a word picture. Each parable is begun with something to the effect of, the kingdom of heaven may be compared to, and then a word picture is offered. Now, the thing to be very clear about is that the picture is not the thing. As one of my professors put it, holding up a picture of an apple, he said, "What is this?" And we all said, "It's an apple." And he said, "Good, take a bite out of it." "Well, we can't take a bite out of it. It's a picture of an apple." "Oh, so it isn't an apple." What Jesus is doing with the parables is painting a word picture to help us to see what the kingdom of heaven is like. And as he does it, we need to remember that no one of these parables can give us the whole picture of the total reality, and we need to remember that the picture is not the thing. The picture represents, the picture points, But it is not the kingdom of heaven, and it is not the whole thing. And we need to hold all of those pictures together as we start to discern what the kingdom of heaven looks like. For today, the parable is about someone who goes out and plants good seed deliberately, carefully, selects that seed. And this seed is identified so that it will respond to the conditions and produce abundantly. You know, as agronomists go, God, the creator of all things, is pretty good at these things. Yet when the plants start to sprout, there are some servants among this person's crew who discern that some of those plants just aren't quite right. Some of them are weeds. But there's another problem. You see, the weed plants and the good seed plants look an awful lot alike. They are nearly identical, and it takes a really good eye to tell the difference. And so if you send the whole crew out there, who knows which plants they're going to end up plucking out? And beyond that, by this point, the root systems have become so intertwined that to pull one plant is to risk harm to the good plants. In the parable of the landowner's solution is elegant and true. Wait. Let the weeds and the good seed grow up together, and at harvest it will be easy to tell. The fruit of the plant will be clear. Then the reapers will sort and deal with each according to its kind. This parable is such a wonderful story of both living in the ambiguity of the both and also clarity. Discerning who is child of God and who is child of the evil one is not the work of the good seed. Telling the difference is the work of the harvesters. In our culture, too many fancy themselves to be good gardeners who can tell the difference and want to take action. For them, life is pretty black and white. It is clear. It is absolute, much like the worldviews of both Diana and Ares at the beginning of the movie, The Wonder Woman. As that movie developed, though, Diana moved to a much more nuanced view of humanity. Yes, humans blow it. Humans do harm to one another. Humans can be destructive. Humans can be power hungry. Humans can be ugly toward one another. All of that can be true. And humans love. Humans do kind things. Humans seek the best for one another. Humans can be self-sacrificing. In fact, within the Lutheran circles, we understand that as both and. All of that exists in each and every one of us. We call it saint and sinner. That indeed we live in that ambiguity. And fortunately, we don't have to play gardener, picking and choosing. God sorts it all out in the end, at the end of the age. What we need to remember is that whatever love we can experience and live comes to us first from the Creator, from the one who has claimed us. Through the waters of baptism and by the grace of God, each and every one of us has been claimed as child of God, beloved of the Lord. Through the waters of baptism and by the grace of God, each and every one of us have been offered the gifts of forgiveness, of salvation, of new life. In this, even when we get it wrong, God is working to make it right.